Sopa's question, which has been sitting on the shelf for a while. I think it was last time, last time. I was all set to answer it, and in fact I had it over here. And by the time I turned my attention over here, I forgot about it. Okay. In the great vehicle tenet systems, we are concerned with the perfection of we're centrally concerned with the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. And in the central, what do you say? I have to word this carefully. According to, it's a little hard to make sure when I speak because of lack of knowledge. When I speak of the mind-only school, to make sure that I can include the mind-only school following scripture. Let's see, following reasoning and following scripture. I meant to say, already made a mistake, the mind-only school following reasoning. Dharmakirti, following Dharmakirti. Because does Dharmakirti say, my mind immediately drifted to, where does Dharmakirti openly say that the Sutra Unraveling the Thought, the Sundari-Namoshana Sutra, is definitive, and the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras require interpretation? Is this just assumed? Certainly, Asanga and his followers say such. This is documented well in Tsongkhapa's The Essence of Eloquence, etc. So at least for Asanga and his followers, when they are speaking from the point of view of the mind-only school, in their, another way of saying it, in their teachings from the point of view of the mind-only school. And so why make this caveat? Asanga made teachings from the point of view of the consequent school when he made commentary on Maitreya's in Sanskrit, Uttara Tantra, which is not a Tantra. Tantra there means sublime. Continuum means continuum. Which is a basic meaning of Tantra, but it's not what in the division of Buddha's word into sutras and tantras, God, you get into all sorts of complexities. From one point of view, tantras are sutras. But if we don't speak from that point of view, but from the division of Buddha's word into sutras and tantras, Tantras are continuums. God, we could get all lost in this terminology and never get back to Sopa's question again. Did she have a question? Yes. Anyway, the Sutra Unraveling the Thought, the third wheel of teachings. And we have to qualify this as the third wheel of teachings as they're depicted in the Sutra Unraveling the Thought itself. And in the Sutra Unraveling the Thought, when they depict the teachings in the middle wheel, they speak of them in a certain way. And the way they speak of them is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. All phenomena are natureless. All phenomena unproduced, unceasing. Right? Quiescent from the start and naturally, thoroughly pass beyond sorrow. In Tibetan, Chötamche, right? All phenomena are natureless, ngo-nyimeba. All phenomena are unproduced, mageba, magakpa, sumane, shiwa, ranshingi, nyanganle deba ho. The last one, all phenomena are nirvanad, naturally nirvanad. Very interesting statement. Naturally nirvanad. On the one just before it, quiescent from the start. Quiescent is all phenomena are at peace. All phenomena are at peace. Quiescent, another way of that's a synonym for at peace. Peace. You know, how are you going to translate it? Peaceful. You know, how could Buddha say that? All phenomena are peaceful, at peace, quiescent. From the start, in Tibetan, sumane. Well, there's no start, but it means forever, from the start. In Nyingma, there is a start, but it's way, 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 way in the past. In the Lotus Sutra, I was sort of, I went to Japan. I was part of was invited, and was into a Lotus Sutra group. And, it's put so far in the past that it's like unthinkably in the past, but, if you ask, is it in the past? It's in the past. Almost so that in the Lotus Sutra, it's almost like beginninglessly in the past, but if you press them on it, there's a beginning. But in this system, no beginning. Quiescent. It's a really wild statement in our Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. And before that, unceasing. Before that, unproduced. Natureless. Before that. And even in the Sutra Unraveling the Thought, just after that, after this summation, when sentient beings who have generated great roots of virtue. And it goes on. You know, how do we develop a lot of power and have purified the obstructions? Purified? Are they Buddhas? No. So they've purified, what does that mean? Some of the obstructions. They've ripened their minds. They're ready to understand. You see? They've gotten rid of a lot of their messes, their obstructions. They've purified a lot of problems they've gotten over. They've got great faith. They've accumulated great collections of merit, great collections of wisdom. When they hear this doctrine, what doctrine? All phenomena are natureless. All phenomena are unproduced, unceasing, quiescent from the start, and naturally, thoroughly pass beyond sorrow. All phenomena, this is the aged Mama. Who puts up lies. So when you're ready, when they hear this doctrine, when they hear this poem, hear this song, when they hear Jang-kya Röl-pay-dor-je, who in a previous lifetime was Kön-chog-jig-me-wang-po, right? Did you read his life story? He wasn't Jamyang Shiva. You see, a lot of these guys were educated not only in Gomang literature, but they had teachers who were in the lineage of Serache. So when they hear this song about aged Mama, and they're putting up lies, and hear about the aged Papa, who, you know, this relationship, and it's not even two hands, right? This tremendous intimacy. It's quite a different way of, you know, quite a provocative, quite an evocative way of looking at emptiness and dependent arising. Hear this doctrine. They understand just as it is. That means without the sutra unraveling the thought. Without the sutra unraveling the thought. So even though from the point of view of the mind-only school, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras are not definitive. They require interpretation. Those with this background understand just as it is, without something to unravel it, to explain it. This, which I explained with the thought behind it, they understand it just as it is, and they develop belief in that doctrine. So you see, even from the point of view of the mind-only school, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras are the supreme of all doctrines, even though they require interpretation. In Tibetan, well, in English, now I was going to give it Tibetan. In English, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras are the supreme of all doctrines. So in Tibetan, Dode Gunki Cho, Mao Chanro Choga Cho. Therefore, what we are studying, whether we're studying the mind-only school, and that includes the mind-only school following Dharmakirti, of course, Asanga, in whatever branch of the of the middle way school, we're probing the meaning of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. They also realize, by means of their exalted wisdom or pristine wisdom, the meaning just as it is. And I wish I could tell you why. Well, it must mean that I just wanted to emphasize the bold, probably. That was the point at the time. Thus, Gelugpa scholars, this must be Hopkins speaking, hold that even for the proponents of mind-only, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra are the supreme sutras, even though their literal reading must be interpreted, according to mind-only school. According to the middle way school, they don't, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras are, I don't want to dig too much of it, how deep the hole has to be. I don't want to dig a hole for myself. I assume this is true for the autonomy school. There's some in the autonomy school, but now there are two divisions. Yoga practice division and Shantarakshita's division called yoga practice, and Bhaveka's division. I should have put the order differently because Bhaveka's first. What division? The Sutric division. Sutric middle way. Autonomy school division. But okay. So, what does this have to do with Sopa's question? Sopa's question has to do with the Dalai Lama's mention of natural quiescence. And one can see that if all phenomena are naturally nirvana'd, that doesn't mean they have their emptiness. Well, this is aged mama. So the short answer is their natural quiescence, or they're naturally quiescent, means they're naturally mama. They are naturally empty of inherent existence, or whatever the object of negation is. That's all he was saying. If we can say, that's all he was saying, and let's pass on to the next topic, which is sandwiches. This is our sandwich break. Or if you prefer, potato chips. Nothing to think about. So, he says, the emptiness that is the mode of subsistence is not established as any extreme. In what perspective? The experiential perspective of meditative equipoise. Seeing emptiness just as it is. And thus it's called the inexpressible mama, not established as anything. Well, there's no question. I mean, just as it is. If in terms of experience, just as it is. But and also, the mode of subsistence is accessible to, can't we say, inference. The mode of subsistence. It's, in what sense is it quiescent? There is a quiescence of, that is the emptiness of inherent existence with everything. It's a quiescence of all of the mess of being existent from its own side, of the superimposition of false ideation that we pack onto the object. What we pack on is something existing from its own side. And if we're attracted to it, it's the overconception of its beauty, of its, right? Beauty that exists from its own side. If we're, and the overconception of its ugliness, of its awfulness, of its horror, and that makes us turn away from it, that makes us also to want to attack it. What is it called? Flee or fight? Flee or fight, is that?
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight. Yes, so there needs to be some, the two words sound alike, and that's kind of fun. Fight or flight. Fight it or run away from it. Right? And so, as His Holiness says so often, the superimposition of inherent existence, which makes it look as if it exists from its own side. And as the Buddha said, all compounded things are tricky, are deceptive. So the way we look at it, that's packed on from here, makes it look as if it's deceptive. And that makes us build all sorts of things that makes those look as if they come from its side. And it's all built up. And that, as His Holiness says, makes us lose our faculty of judgment. So that if we do have to fight or flight, if we do have to, right, it makes us not have a good judgment about how to do it. a calmness of mind that makes us, that allows us to do what is right. And right might be fight. Right might be flight. Or might be, as I had to do this morning, which is sit and wait out the, I don't know, some sort of lack of oxygen attack that I was going through. And fortunately, I remained calm, and it was a bit longer than I expected, but I remained calm. Funny thing happened too. I had my usual pair of glasses out, and one of the lenses fell out in the midst of this, which I thought was rather amusing. But if you were excited and too worked up in the midst of this, it might terrorize you. Terrorize me. All right, just making it a little personal. I suppose I'm claiming. I'm claiming that I maintained calmness this morning, and I'll take joy in that. 5 or 10 minutes of calmness. Yeah. Nothing to do with blah blah. Okay, quiescent. Ngo niki shua. Ngo in Tibetan, ngo niki shua. Ngo niki is another word like inherently. Instead of in Tibetan, ranshingi shua. Ranshingi you expect would be the object of negation. But this is naturally. Natural nirvana, natural quiescence that we have will turns into, in a sense, the one of the factors of the Dharmakaya of a Buddha. Because it's with us now. Just like Agent Mama is with us now. Okay, that's a very short version. But leave it at that. Okay. So, His Holiness, at the point of where this comes up, Jang-kya's poem is talking about, because it's talking about poses in all sorts of ways, and is talking about lies, but he doesn't bring that up at that point. And it's not that he's not open, because in another context, he talked about ultimate truths and veilings, which some people just translate as conventional truths instead of veiling truths. And he said, what could be more false than that? So, it's not that he's averse to bringing up that. So that note that's in a footnote that where Sopa's question comes from is in a note. And Sopa actually beautifully, and I'm not being critical here, she instead of saying naturally quiescent, she said naturally quiescence. And she was, her constructive mind was thinking about emptiness being the essence, quiescence, you see, being the essence out of which things appear. And our minds do this kind of thing. And it was really beautiful. She wasn't using her usual spell checking mind on her own word. She used quiescence. It was really beautiful. So it's calm, and it's this emptiness is that out of which the phenomena of dependent arising appear. And she was bringing her knowledge of the poem into, unconsciously, one can say, or, her conscious mind and her conscious understanding of the meaning of the poem was affecting how she was remembering the spelling of the word quiescence, and which was actually quiescent. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful, shall I tease her and say, mangling of the spelling. It was lovely. It was lovely. I really appreciated it. So then, Boris 2's question about naturally abiding lineage and developmental lineage. And I think the translations which I use help to themselves help. In brief, the naturally abiding lineage is emptiness, and the developmental lineage is, so we all have the naturally abiding lineage. And even if in what I sent, it talks about it only in terms of bodhisattvas on the paths, that's in that context. In the context of certain teachings. And it almost makes it look as if you're not on the path, you don't even have the naturally abiding lineage. Never mind the developmental lineage. But the definition is the emptiness of the mind, according to Jang-kya, the emptiness of the mind in the continuum of somebody who has obstructions yet to be overcome. So a Buddha doesn't have obstructions yet to be overcome. So what's a lineage? A lineage is what allows you to, to put it in a very gross way, which allows you to join a certain club. Now, you could say once you join the club, that means you've got the lineage, but allows you to join the club. So, it's not my example doesn't hold in all ways. But once you join the club, well, you don't need the lineage. But, actually you do. And, my family for a while was, a member of the country club. And, because I was a son of my parents, I could go to the club, which I seldom did. But there were some dances, and I went to a few dances with Spike Jones and his band of renown, or whatever he called it. It allows you to do something. My father was a manager of Rhode Island's biggest lumber and hardware store, the biggest. Well, you might laugh and say, well, Rhode Island's so small. It must have only had two lumber and hardware stores. And you would get us all pissed off. And we'd start telling you stories about Rhode Island being the home of Newport, where all the rich people used to summer. And then we'd go on and say, Barrington is on the way to Newport, where we lived. Well, so what? You didn't live in Newport. They had stupendous places with gold leaf ceilings, the Breakers. Wow, we could go visit them because the rich people no longer lived there, that particular place. Anyway. So my father was the manager of that. So when I was tiny, I had a hardware store down in the cellar on the ping pong table. The cellar was not fixed up. It was cement, concrete, and nobody ever came to the store. But you see, I had the lineage, so that allowed me to become a hardware store owner. And so I took some articles from the so-called shop that was in the corner and put them on the ping pong table. And I had a little cash register. And I sold them to imaginary people, which was my fortune, because I knew it was entirely stupid. But it got that out of my system, because I enacted my lineage. But you see, it's defined, unlike what you cited. You cited a definition that was not cleverly enough worked. Emptiness of the mind of someone whose continuum had obstructions still to be eliminated. So that means you no longer have the Buddha lineage. Buddha lineage is like Buddha nature. So a Buddha has no Buddha nature. But a Buddha does have that other type of natural emptiness. So Buddha lineage and natural emptiness, we do have the natural emptiness now. And that'll turn into the, in Tibetan, Kön-chog-jig-me-wang-po, the natural I can say it in Tibet, not in English. The natural.
Naturally pure?
Yeah.
Naturally pure nature truth body?
Yeah. Yeah. Naturally pure nature body. Thank you. So we have that. It's going to turn into that. Turn into, so to speak, but turn into, we have it. So you see, this is the aged mother that turns into that, but turns into, it's the very same, it was the same before, same after. The developmental lineage is the clear light nature of the mind. The clear light nature of the mind is not an emptiness in Gelug. It's a compounded phenomenon. And when we begin to engage in practice, then it is done in terms of the clear light nature of the mind. That's what the text says. And that's very good. It caused me to think about it. Done in terms of it. I mean, it's done in terms of the mind, the development of the mind. What? I feel I want to say primarily in the development of that. And thus, not in thus, I'll leave it at that. Then, Boris brought up a point about awareness of oneself and what this has to do with self-cognition. And of course, all systems of tenets have to posit awareness of oneself, awareness of one's own mind and what we're doing with our mind. And it made me think, and we have brought this up, like introspection, both out of meditation, in meditation. We have a faculty of introspection which we have to develop more and more, both in terms of our daily behavior and in terms of meditation, inspecting to see if our mind is too loose or too tight. And as we've said, if you inspect too much, then this will interfere with staying on the object. And it's said to inspect from time to time. And not all, am I too loose? Am I too tight? All the time. Am I too loose? Am I too tight? Am I too loose? Am I too tight? Am I too loose? Am I too tight? You then will have forgotten about your object of meditation. So, what are the various injunctions, conscientiousness, what are all of them? That self-cognition is not.
Mm-hmm.
What are all of these that self-cognition is not? And I went hunting for, I said, Ngā Belden has this fantastic description of something of what looks just like self-cognition, that the consequent school puts down. And Boris too responded to what I was sending really to Boris from the consequent school. Was really good. This was open to anyone's response, asking, well, where's this from? And I didn't find what I was looking for, which was this supreme description of what looks like self-cognition in the consequent school is, like it's almost it. This thing that the consequent school accepts, according to Belden, but they refuse it. All I found was the refusal in Giant Shivas, to answer Boris too, and I should have said where it came from. Giant Shivas great exposition on Chandrakirti's supplement to Nagarjuna's treatise on the middle. That's what it is. That's what it's from. And it's the whole of that section, that title. But does he in other places address the issue? I don't know. I just grabbed that translation and sent it to Boris, and the intention being, here's something more, Boris, and included, of course, the whole group. And I didn't go over it. I didn't get out the Tibetan and and fix up the translation. I included all of my notes to myself, which were probably read into a tape recorder, but it also looked as if some work had been done on it. Next time.
Thank you. Thank you.